There was times during the season last year where I lost focus on the fact that we were making progress, as hard as that was to believe based on our results. And I think the run at the end of the year absolutely proved it, that progress was being made. Experience we were getting good experience even with losing the negative situations, and ultimately that all that kind of stuff was part of our process and our journey here. And that's I at times lost track of that, but in hindsight and looking back, I think that we got reminded and we got shown that this is happening and we are going in a positive direction. And then from the players' perspective, when they're not looking at it as big picture as maybe I am or the coaching staff is, I think they realize they can play with anybody when they do things a certain way. And you know, we're not going to dwell on what happened at the end of last year, because the regular season was as negative as it was positive, and if maybe not more so. But we are going to continue to remind ourselves that if things are done a certain way, we can play and compete at a high level in this league.
Well, Chris, with that, then, I mean, can you talk about your expectations for this season?
Our expectations, Phil, are just strictly to be more consistent. I think when you have a roller coaster ride like we did a year ago with a young team, no doubt, but with us being a year older and some guys haven't been around this brand and this culture for a couple of years now, we expect to be more consistent on a daily basis. I think our the ebbs and flows of our season were just way too big, and there was no reason for it, and that starts with me. I like I said before, I almost got too caught up with the results and stopped focusing on the process and our daily routine and things like that. So we expect us to be a lot more consistent in our approach day to day. And then ultimately, that's gonna show up in our play. And if we're more consistent, we'll give ourselves a better chance to win on a game in, game out basis. But our guys realize that starts on a daily basis in practice.
Could you talk about your returning players this year? That you had a young team last year that got a lot of minutes and saw a lot of playing time, and I got to figure that's going to pay off this season.
Well, we hope so. I mean, Andrew Hammond, you'd probably start there as a senior. Andrew was pretty successful as a junior hockey player and hasn't had much success in 3 years in terms of, anything consistent or collective. So we're hoping that he has a good season, and, he's expected to play most of the minutes for us this year, at least heading into the year. Cam Watala and Ryan Carpenter have been they're our captains, and they were basically the unanimous vote of the whole program to be the captains, Cam being a junior and Ryan being a sophomore. But they're guys that aren't 19 or 18 years old. These are guys that have been through it and lived it, and we've been on the road in the playoffs. We've been to Joe Louis Arena. We've been to all the hard places in our league to play. So, we feel like all those experiences can pay off in terms of the leadership. I think, Burkle, DeSalvo, Perrier, these guys are sophomores now. We expect them to be more consistent with their play. And just everybody having been here, instead of having 15 underclassmen in the lineup every night, we're probably going to have 15 sophomores and 15 sophomores and juniors combined. And these are guys that have been through quite an experience, even in a year or 2 years. So with those guys kind of being the core of our team in terms of numbers, we expect it to be a collective effort and not, we're going to rely on one or two guys to get us where we want to go. So, I think that's something that's starting to catch on, that this is about all of us and everybody individually has their role in that. And we'll kind of continue to focus on that until we don't have to anymore.
What about somebody like, you brought up Hammond. You look down every game, he set single-season record for minutes played, saves. What's it like to have a guy like that back there?
Well, it's good, but I think that you kind of get you get lost in the fact that Andrew's still a work in progress as well. There was times last year that he wasn't on top of his game, but it was our lack of depth in goal or an injury in goal that, he was the guy that started all the games. And by no means am I saying he didn't have a good year. He had a good year, but we want Andrew to take his year from good to great, and so does he. We feel like he's a guy that should be knocking on the door of an all-league type goaltender. But that's something that's going to start with consistency, and he knows it. He is probably a prime example when I talk about our expectations for this year of being more consistent. Andrew Hammond is probably at the top of that list, and he's a direct mirror image of, as an individual, of what we need to be better with our program. It's just more of a consistent focus on a daily basis, and there's no reason to believe he won't do that. He's a guy that wants that. He got a little taste of professional hockey with one of those summer prospect camps with Chicago. So I know he was able to see how young professionals prepare and how focused they are, and that was a good experience for him. So we're hoping that he learns from that, and he's a guy that, like I said before, is able to take his game from good to great.
How about sophomore forward Dan DeSalvo? 10 goals, CCHA record in the playoffs, and I know he got healthy. What do you expect from him this year? Well,
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but we expect him to be more consistent. I mean, I don't think he had 10 goals the whole season. Then he gets 10 in the playoffs. I mean, he was a guy that was figuring it out, and he was figuring it out by fire. He got thrown right in the middle of things, just like Burkle, just like Carpenter, and some of those Ds. So they weren't able to learn in practice. They had to learn in games. And Danny's a guy he's an offensive guy, and he's had a knack of scoring big goals throughout his career. Now we want that to be a day in, day out, game in, game out thing for him, and not something that pops its head up just in the playoffs. And again, I think you look at him and 10 or 15 other guys that we expect them to be more consistent. So it's not an 11th place team that has a nice run in the playoffs. It's a team that day in, day out, in every game, you're getting basically the same type of stuff, and hopefully that will result in more wins and losses.
How about from your limited viewing, any freshmen you think could have an impact right away?
You asked Jimmy that question. I don't think there's one. I think collectively the group of forwards. I mean, Dejan Mingo is considered a freshman. He was here last year. We've got Mingo, we've got Mark Cooper, Brent Tate, and Ben Murphy. And those guys, the four of them together, I think could really do some things up front. Now, they're guys that we don't have to put the weight of the world on their shoulders and say, you guys have to carry the mail for us offensively, but they're all guys that have been offensive throughout their career to this point. They're all guys that we're going to put in situations to contribute offensively, and I think all of them are prepared to have an impact. How big that impact is going to be, well, we'll find out, but those four forwards have done a nice job, and then we've got Jose Delgadillo on the back end, who is a big defender who we think can contribute. So I think it's a collective thing in terms of the freshmen and what their impact is going to be.
Last question, Chris, from Paul Weston at USCHO.com. What's the final season of the CCHA mean to you and your program?
I don't even know if I can put in words what it means. I mean, I think some of the history lessons I've learned about Bowling Green as a founding member and all the success Bowling Green has had in this league, what it's meant to me as a player, what it's meant to me as a coach. It's a bittersweet thing. I mean, we're excited about the future, but really, really sad and disappointed to see the CCHA go away after this year. But I'll echo some of the sentiments I've heard earlier. We're gonna be proud this year. We're gonna play as hard as we can to represent this league the way it deserves to be represented, and hopefully it's one that we can look back with good memories of this season. But it's a bittersweet time as far as Bowling Green's concerned.